Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. It's often said that music soothes the savage beast, and while there's a degree of truth to this in reality, it often goes much further in fantasy, with magical bards that can weave wondrous tunes that can heal friends, lull foes to sleep, or sometimes when a game wants a more realistic approach, simply give a morale boost to their allies. Even in history, musicians were often used to give orders upon the battlefield or rally the troops, especially during the colonial era. Hello again everyone, I'm Adam the Fanatic, also known as Mario Fanatic 15, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spell Saga, a unique single-player adventure card game by Subheathen Games. Though the game describes itself as a tabletop novel, I would argue that it is more poetry than prose. Perhaps it should even be called a tabletop ballad, as you take the role of the last minstrel, a magical bard simply trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world. We'll begin this review by taking a look at the base game, a deck known as the Highlands. Spell Saga is a very unique game that's hard to classify into typical tabletop game genres. It has a bit of hand management and dungeon crawl aspects to it, as well as some clear campaign mechanics if you decide to expand your game with a second deck, the Forest, which likewise is intended to eventually carry over to a third deck not yet released, the Caves. However, I think the most accurate way to introduce this rather novel game is to describe it as a deck management game. You'll be moving cards into and out of various piles, which never includes a discard pile. Rather, cards that would be discarded are instead cycled and placed back on the bottom of the deck. As you explore the Highlands, you'll have a trusty revolver at your side. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a rusty revolver. Along the way, you'll find friends and foes alike, if you're truly lucky, even allies to join you along your journey. The goal of the game is hidden from you at first, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you'll eventually discover it as you're trekking along. You'll need to provide your own tokens to track the position of your heroes. I use some spares I have from Splendor. This will allow you to show where your heroes are as they travel amongst the various locales. The flow of gameplay in Spell Saga is as such. Each turn, you'll start by moving to a new location card, though most of these can be revisited on subsequent turns. After that, you'll take a number of cards equal to your current heroes and put them into either your source pile or your hand. You can split them among the piles as you see fit, but you cannot look at a card until you decide to dedicate it to your hand. After that, you draw the same number of cards face up into the action pile. Once cards are placed in the action pile, you check to see if they are ignored or acknowledged. You do this by checking the source cost on the upper left-hand corner of the card. If the number of cards in the story pile is less than the number displayed here, you ignore the card, cycling it at the end of the turn and being unable to interact with it. Otherwise, that card is acknowledged. If there are any acknowledged enemies in the action pile, you immediately enter combat, which I'll explain a little later. The acknowledge-ignore mechanic acts as a way to balance the game and reduce the whimsy of fate, especially in the early game, making it so you're less likely to get a powerful item or face an overbearing foe early on. Over the course of the game, you'll encounter a number of different types of cards. These include heroes who will join and fight alongside you as you journey. They may come and go, though you'll always have the last minstrel, who represents the player as they journey through the game. Next we have items, which can help your heroes in a myriad of different ways, including, but certainly not limited to, weapons to help you fight off enemies, potions to manipulate other cards, or a cloak to let you mulligan nasty cards from the action pile. Then on to places, which represent the various locations you'll visit during your journey. Some are just simple stops along the way, while others will help or harm you as you visit them. After that, you have folk. Think of these like NPCs in RPGs, which will give you side quests and rewards if you take the time to fulfill them. Then we have story cards. These give a bit more flavor to the collapsed world around you, representing both your character and dangers alike growing stronger as the journey progresses. Next we have spell songs, which you'll be able to use for various purposes, mostly card manipulation of various sorts, which is nigh essential for keeping things from getting out of hand. Finally, we come to enemies, which will attempt to do you harm, bringing us to combat. When one or more enemies are acknowledged in the action pile, combat begins. First, you look at the enemy card with the single highest source cost, and compare it to the number of cards in your source pile. If you meet or exceed the enemy's number, you get to strike first. At the start of the game, you'll have a rusted revolver, which allows you to deal damage by cutting the deck and looking at the bottom card revealed, using its source cost as damage dealt to your foes. You can find additional weapons as the game progresses, but you may only use one weapon per hero that you currently control. If enemies strike first, or if they survive your attacks, then you'll take damage to your armor equal to their attack value. If a hero card other than the Last Minstrel takes damage in excess of their armor, they're cycled back into the deck. If the Last Minstrel is defeated, he dies and you lose the game. Assuming you survive, any enemy cards will be cycled back into the deck, with many of them having prize and penalty conditions. Despite their name, prizes are not always beneficial, but are triggered upon defeating an enemy. Similarly, penalties are incurred when you fail to defeat a foe before they cycle. This explains the general gist of the game and what you can expect from Deck 1, the Highlands. However, the game also has two main expansions available: the bonus box for the Highlands and Deck 2, the Forest. Both of these require you to already have Deck 1, but they're not dependent upon one another. The bonus box is just what it sounds like. It includes 75 cards, 3 of which are alternate art for the heroes in the game, the other 72 which can be added to the deck to add more variety to it, including additional cards of every kind found in the base game, as well as a few new types of cards as well. There's also a small number of foil cards, which can be added to the game in similar fashion. The Forest continues the story where the first deck leaves off. You must first successfully complete the Highlands as your cards carry over into the new deck. And while I've yet to win a game in the Forest, it involves attempting to navigate and surviving within ever-changing magical woods. It's a major step up in difficulty, and I look forward to returning to it and attempting to finally overcome it in the future. Though I wouldn't be surprised if it manages to overcome me a few more times in the process. Also available for purchase is the Prelude deck, a standalone minigame that uses many of the same rules as the base game. There's no way to actually lose in this deck, though you will need some way to keep track of cards as they change names. There's no enemies and thus no combat, but I feel it can serve as a good introduction to the game, as it allows the player to learn the game's unique mechanics without the threat of losing. Finally, we have component quality. The only objects to really discuss are the cards, which are of decent thickness, and there's not much to really say on the matter. I will say that I wish that the game included proper tokens instead of asking you to provide your own, and I wish that there was a physical copy of the manual, even if only available as a separate purchase. As it is, you'll need to go to the game's website and download a PDF. I realize both of these would increase cost, but as a point of personal preference, I've never appreciated when a game requires you to provide additional components. In conclusion, Spell Saga is a unique and ambitious game. I can't really think of another game that I could draw a direct comparison to. It's a blend of concepts that I've never really seen before, and it mixes them together in a solid, enjoyable way. The Acknowledge-Ignore mechanic is especially innovative, as it allows the game to remain balanced without having to divide the deck into separate sections. Even if you decide to take a bunch of cards from the bonus deck and add them into Deck 1 before advancing to Deck 2, you'll still have a gradually increasing challenge as you go through the game. Though I wouldn't say it quite lives up to its promise of being a tabletop novel, I did enjoy the poetic language, and it makes me eager to know more about the characters and the world that they live in. On the downside, the rules can be a little unclear at times. Combat is rather luck-driven, and while there are ways to mitigate it, it largely just comes down to how powerful cards you draw for your weapons are. Additionally, while I do find that the Acknowledge-Ignore mechanic is an essential part of the game that does more good than it does harm, I do find that it can cause the early game to be a bit of a slog as you're just waiting for things to start happening. All in all, I find Spell Saga to be a unique and intriguing game that's worth checking out for any fans of high fantasy settings. In the end, I give it an 8 out of 10. If you're interested in purchasing Spell Saga, links are included in the description. There's also complete print and play files that you can download for free. But what about you? What do you think of Spell Saga? Are there any other games you enjoy that don't fit into the typical classifications of genres? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below, and please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.